Good morning, Kansas City. Welcome to Uncanceled on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. I'm Kevin Kietzman in for the next hour, leading you up to the Vince Show on KCMO Talk Radio. We've got a whole bunch of great stories today, including some of the best sting operations between ICE and local authorities you've ever heard. We have a flurry of those, a barrage of those. I love reporting the good news to you about all the people we're apprehending and all the drugs we're confiscating. And, man, it's a haul this week. They are getting the work done, and they are still out there working because that is essential work. So we're pleased that they're out there continuing to work. We've got some very strong comments from legendary golfer Tom Watson, who posted on social media, if you can believe that, about the fans at the Ryder Cup last weekend, and it is making headlines more globally than it is in America. Tom Watson is the second most popular American golfer in Europe behind Tiger Woods because of his lifelong greatness at tournaments in Europe and his commitment to the area and those people and the things that he's done. He's also very big in Asia and places like that. So when Tom Watson says something, people listen, and we'll tell you what he said about the fans at the Ryder Cup. It's got everybody's attention. We start today with a very unique lead. We have co-lead stories that would share the same headline. It reminds me of the movie Vacation, when the Griswolds finally get to the Grand Canyon. And Chevy Chase's character, Clark Griswold, grabs his son, Russ, and he puts his arm around him, and they're looking out over the Grand Canyon, and they both shake their head, and they look at it for about 10 seconds and goes, well, okay, that's it. They saw it. It's over. Great. You saw the Grand Canyon. That's what today's lead stories are. Frank White is out as county executive in Jackson County. Okay, he's out. He's going to hang around a couple more days. I think it takes effect Monday. They got to find somebody else. He's out. What's really going to change? I guess we'll find out. It'll be different, but that doesn't mean things will change. And the government shut down last night at midnight, and I haven't noticed. Have you? So we've got these two stories that are, no question, big stories, but they're sort of like one-paragraph stories. You know, a lot of things happen in the news. You want all the details, all the context. You want to know all the nuances. Something big happens. We want to know everything. These two, you're just like, okay, Frank White's out. Okay, the government shut down. All due respect, people that work for the federal government, there's 750,000 jobs at the federal government that are in jeopardy right now or affected by this, of people that may possibly be not working, that are paid $400 million a day with our tax dollars. That's an average salary of $133,000 a year. I'm not shedding tears today. I'm sorry. And I know conservatives work for the government too. But if Trump's going to cut and slash and do what I think he's going to do, and we'll talk more about this at 10:30 when we focus in on his director of the budget, John Vogt. When we talk about him at 10:30, I'm going to go into detail about who this guy is because we don't know much about him, but I've read up on him a lot in the last 3 days, and he's had a plan for years. If they're simply going to target the people in D.C. and the agencies in D.C. and not affect places like Kansas City, wouldn't we all be good with that? So I think that's where we're probably headed with that. We'll get into further discussions later about the shutdown and what it means and what John Vogt wants. Not John Voight. Oh, so, I'm sorry, Russ. Russ Vogt. See, you don't know the guy, Russ Vogt. I got Russ from Vacation mixed up with John Voight somehow, and that makes absolutely no sense. But this is going to happen, and I think we're going to be in this for a while, and nobody misses a check now until the 15th. So we can say they're not getting paid, but until payday comes around, I remember graduating college and going to work in Joplin where my take-home pay twice a month was $383. We were broke. I mean, we were broke. But if somebody told me I wasn't going to get paid for a month, I'd find a way. I would have had enough somewhere to pay the rent, keep the lights on, scrape together a little, change from the old ashtray in my 74 Pontiac and get to Taco Bell or something. I'd be all right. So I'm not doing that. A couple months from now, maybe, but not right now. I'm not. Everybody knows what they're signing up for. The things that are good about working for the government way outweigh this nonsense. What bothers me is the fact that the politicians continue to get paid. And if everybody else doesn't get paid on the 15th, I'm with Pete. He said earlier Trump should just do an executive order that politicians don't get paid. Sorry, you're out with everyone else. I've got no problem with that. But if we wanted to look at Frank White being out and we want to extend that to what's important to people in Jackson County and will there be anything different, the two things people mention first, for most voters, it's likely property taxes. But for the media, for discussion, for talk radio, for me, the most interesting thing is how does this affect the Royals and Chiefs? And maybe that's out of whack. Maybe that's not fair. Maybe that's not right. But it affects a lot more people in Kansas City than just Jackson County homeowners. So everybody wants to know, Frank White is out. He was clearly a roadblock to the Royals and Chiefs. Will they appoint somebody that clears a pathway for a new tax? And do Jackson County voters have to vote for it? And why on earth would anybody think they'd vote yes when they didn't vote yes before? What could they possibly, as mad as Jackson Countyans are and as screwed up as everything is there, why would they possibly vote yes? Of course, this is a weird county and a weird situation because Frank White was recalled with 85% of the vote. He was the guy trying not to pay tax money and revenue to the Royals and Chiefs. Yet, when the voters went to the poll, they weren't for it. They still didn't like Frank White. So, obviously, the property tax issue is a bigger thing when people go vote, but we'll see. The underlying story here is something that came up on the exact same day this all happened. And this is a much more important story to me if you're worried about or thinking about what's going to happen with the Royals and Chiefs in the future in Kansas City. A Cole County judge held a hearing Tuesday on a lawsuit challenging the constitutionality of stadium financing passed by the General Assembly and signed into law by Governor Mike Kehoe. The lawsuit, Moon versus the state of Missouri, was filed on behalf of State Senator Mike Moon and Representative Bryant Wolfen, both Republicans, as well as Ron Calzone, the director of Missouri First, an organization dedicated to the sovereignty of Missourians. They believe that the stadium package bill that passed in a special session is unconstitutional. It went before a judge yesterday. Senate Bill 3 not only is about stadiums, but it's about taxpayers subsidizing the private headquarters and private training facilities of the sports franchises, Calzone said. They're also basically pointing out that there's more to this. There's disaster relief and campaign finance. And this whole thing is supposed to be one subject, a special session. This is unconstitutional. So they take it to the judge, and they get it to the judge in Cole County. And the Cole County judge's name is Christopher Limbaugh. He is Rush Limbaugh's cousin. The Limbaugh family is well known throughout the state of Missouri. They're from Cape Girardeau largely. But the circuit judge denied the motion to expedite the case, said he's taking a motion from the Missouri Attorney General's office to dismiss the case under advisement. Now, he was just appointed in 24 by Governor Parson. He is obviously a dyed-in-the-wool conservative, probably would like to move up, maybe even be Missouri Attorney General someday. I don't know. So he may go along with the wishes of the politicians, but as they've asked to expedite this, he has said no, and he's taking a motion from the Missouri Attorney General's office to dismiss it under advisement. However, most important part of this story was arguing before the judge, both sides, both the state saying this is constitutional and the politicians who filed a lawsuit saying this is unconstitutional and Missouri cannot do this for these teams. Both sides' attorneys said in the hearing yesterday that this court case will end up in the Missouri Supreme Court next year. So Kansas is offering 70% to both teams. It's done. There's nothing to pass. There's no pending legislation. You just have to draw the district of your star bond and say this is where the taxes are going to come from that pay this thing off. If the Royals and Chiefs aren't on board with overruns, if they're not responsible for overruns, they don't care how they draw up that district. That can be the politicians any way they want it. There is some negotiating to that. Ty Masterson told Pete Mundo that last week, right here on KCMO Talk Radio. But that's the only thing. It's a relatively small detail, but it is one that could derail the deal. I will recognize that. But if Kansas is willing to do it, you can draw the Star Bond District however you want and get the proper funds to fund these stadiums. In Missouri, there is no offer. Anything Missouri does at 50% has to have the county or city pumping in money as well. That's not done. The talk of a vote in November seems completely irrelevant. I don't know how there could be a vote in November. So they're looking at April. Is April before the Missouri Supreme Court decides whether this is even legal or not? So now the Royals and Chiefs have been told by the lawyers on both sides of this in the state of Missouri, in a circuit court in Cole County, the Royals and Chiefs have been told in a hearing, in a legal proceeding, that this is going to the Supreme Court next year. And when it goes to them, we still don't know how long it will take for them to decide whether this is constitutional or not. How long we got to do this? How long are the Royals and Chiefs going to hang around in Missouri before they realize Missouri doesn't have anything together? Recalling county executives where you fail to vote. Maybe something good's happening in Clay County. That's where Governor Keogh went and had a news conference about the Royals. I think that's their preferred site for the Royals. I don't think anybody wants to do business with Jackson County. I don't know if the Royals are so sideways with Jackson County and are looking to go elsewhere, whether it's Kansas or Missouri. How could the Chiefs possibly think about renovating Arrowhead Stadium and staying in Jackson County? At this point, it looks like the governor's office and the state of Missouri want nothing to do with Jackson County, which I understand. The state is run by Republicans. Jackson County and Kansas City, Missouri are run by Democrats. I wouldn't want to deal with them either. If you owned a sports franchise, ladies and gentlemen, everyone listening right now, forget whether you're from Kansas or Missouri, forget all the other stuff. If you're listening, you're likely, or most of our audience is conservative. If you own one of these teams, do you want to deal with Jackson County and Kansas City, Missouri, or do you want to find better people to deal with that are conservative? It's a simple question. And it's not just about getting the deal done. It's about where your stadium is located. It's about, do they support the police to do the proper job around our games to make it safe? Is the infrastructure there? Is the commitment there? Is there a community feel? Will people support it that live nearby? All these things are vitally and crucially important to owners. Yes, the number one thing to the owners is, can we develop around it and make billions of dollars in other developments other than a sports team? Yes, that's the most important thing. But come on, we're sitting here watching recall votes, Mayor Q and the things that he's done and the crime in Kansas City, Missouri. We got people getting beat up. We got ushers getting beat up at T-Mobile Center by teenagers, and they basically just get released to their mommy. And we find out almost over a week later, they get a couple of lame charges that won't result in anything. And as I understand it, this teenager that beat this man up is likely, I can't confirm this yet. What I've heard, he's from the burbs and has likely been kicked off his football team and is getting more punishment at school than he's ever going to get from the police in Kansas City, Missouri, or authorities in Jackson County. That the real punishment for that guy that beat up that usher is going to be the misery he's suffering at school, because they found out and they're punishing him real because he's not 18 years old. No, that doesn't sound like the place I want. My stadium on Dollar Dog Night. And here they come. They come flowing in, and oh my God, we got teenagers everywhere. And Worlds of Fun's dealt with this. Teenagers, I'm sorry, man. We were all teenagers. We all had our problems. I did a whole bunch of stupid things. You know what we didn't do? We didn't gather 150 of us and have a fight at Worlds of Fun. We didn't go to T-Mobile and beat up ushers. We didn't go to Chiefs parades and shoot each other. I don't know what the hell's going on with teenagers today. But if I'm the Royals or Chiefs, I want to be around a place where they're going to enforce the law against teenagers in some way. And some of the things we see, I just don't get it. I don't know how the Chiefs and Royals are going to sit back and wait for the Missouri Supreme Court to decide sometime next year if the Senate bill that passed is legal or not. They cannot make a decision on Missouri before that's done. They can't. Otherwise, the rug gets pulled out. You can't go make a decision and say, oh, we're renovating Arrowhead Stadium, and then the Missouri Supreme Court next year says, no, you're not. This is unconstitutional. And I don't know what the odds are. Seems like it's constitutional to me, but I'm no lawyer. I don't know. But lawyers for both sides agree it's going to take the Missouri Supreme Court to decide this. And that's where this is once again. And everybody's talking about Frank White being out is going to land the Royals and Chiefs in Kansas City, Missouri, and Jackson County. But now that Frank White is gone, the next hurdle is the Missouri Supreme Court sometime next year. Wow. 913-408-7957. That's 408-7957 if you'd like to join the discussion. We haven't really taken many calls this week. Come on in And we'll get you on the air, see what you think about that or the government shutdown. Anything that's on your mind is fair game right now on Uncanceled. This is KCMO Talk Radio.
Call Kevin Kietzman, 913-408-7957. Now on 95.7 FM.
You'll like this, Mark, as a side note to the attorney that's working the case against Senate Bill 3 that wants to keep the Chiefs and Royals from getting that money. His name is Beavis. Beavis Shock is his name. And he said, this is a direct gift or bribe. Would the taxpayers be willing to pay Patrick Mahomes' salary? Because that's essentially what they'll be doing every year. That the money's about the same. The money that would go in from the state of Missouri that goes to the Chiefs for a new stadium is about what they pay Patrick Mahomes. Would they like to pay Patrick Mahomes' salary? I think he said it wrong. I think most fans would say, yes, we want to pay Patrick Mahomes' salary. Yes, we definitely want to do that, Beavis. Just come on. You know, I just don't get this because it's the Kansas schools that are so jacked up, and it's Missouri politics that are so jacked up. I just don't get it. I don't understand it. I'm sorry. I don't mean to make light of the man's name, but if your name's Beavis and Butthead's been around for 25 years, you got to go with your middle name. You got to make a change, don't you?
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know anybody was named Beavis. Did you?
I did not. I got to hear this guy laugh, though. I got to see if he's got the laugh.
Oh, we're not supposed to have this much fun. I promised good news that, I drove in here on Interstate Highway today, a federal highway. I couldn't believe I was able to get on. The government's not open, but the highway is. So are the national parks. The national parks are open. They're essential. Only the essential things are open. The national parks. I love the national parks. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I love the national parks. But I think it's funny that we're worried about a government shutdown, but you can drive through Yellowstone today. No problem. It's all good. Come on in. I think those parks make money. They act like they don't, but the number of people that go through there, if they're not making money, they're running them wrong. I promise you. We're just doing a great job catching illegal criminals in this country and contraband. In Central Florida, they did a sweep. We're going to go the entire year, but most of this was after Trump got in because they weren't doing this the 3 months under Biden. This fiscal year ended September 30th, so it ended yesterday. The fiscal year in South Florida, they collected 1 million pounds of cocaine this year for fiscal 2025. That's 42 dump trucks full of cocaine, 378 million lethal doses, or $11 billion worth of losses for the cartels. $11 billion. That's from one operation in South Florida. But it's not as impressive maybe as what was just announced happened within this last week. The Oklahoma Highway Patrol, along with ICE, set up a sting on I-40 as you're leaving Oklahoma and going into Texas. This is traveling west. Okay, this is traveling west out or east coming in from Texas. It's a very small slice of Texas that then goes into New Mexico. So we're talking about West Texas and western Oklahoma. They did a sting where they stopped 500 18-wheelers. I think that was their goal. We're going to stop 500. Let's do this as a fact-finding mission. They stopped them for like a checkpoint, like DUI checkpoint, only the 18-wheelers. They stopped 500 big rigs, ladies and gentlemen, and turned 120 of the drivers over to ICE. That's 25%. A quarter of the drivers, when me and my wife and my cute little puppy are driving out to the desert to see my son, because we like to drive, we love the scenery, we like to take our time, make our own way. Truck passes me by, it's got a 25% chance of being an illegal with a fake driver's license. Mark, what did that fake driver's license say that we just saw a little bit ago? Name unknown.
Unknown name.
And
it lasted like a month or two.
Yeah, it was issued in April and expires in May. It was a fake driver's license. They're catching a quarter of them are illegal. Unbelievable. When we come back, the man that's about to chop what we're spending if Trump does this right on Uncanceled.
If it's happening in KCMO, it's on KCMO 95.7 FM. Here's Kevin Kietzman.
Welcome back to Uncanceled. Thank you so much for joining us each and every day here on KCMO Talk Radio, making it part of your day. We're certainly having a great time doing it, and we are thrilled that you listen. It is absolutely true. We're going to the phones here in just a second, and then we're going to talk about Russ Vought, the man who apparently has been designing what would happen in a government shutdown for years with Donald Trump. Very interesting. First, we go to Ed in Gladstone, who says he is ready to pay more taxes. Hello, Ed. How are you, sir?
Oh, yes. Pay Patrick Mahomes with my tax money. I figure it's either 10 new toilet seats for the Senate office building or Patrick Mahomes' salary. I know which one of those is a better use of my tax money.
So you're just looking for a little return on your investment.
That's right, a little return. And if it's even – and it may be simply watching the Chiefs play on Sunday. That's worth my tax money.
Well, it's 10:35 a.m., Ed. Have you missed your government yet?
Wait, hang on. I heard it shut down, but I really haven't noticed.
When do you think anybody will notice?
Well, I think the Democrats will make us think we're noticing. But yeah, no, I'm pretty sure. I mean, I'm on the interstate and it's a little rough, but wait a second. They just shut down the government like 10 hours ago. So this interstate was kind of jacked up way before that when the government was running.
I'm betting you see orange barrels and people working out there on that thing, aren't you? Work will continue today.
Well, I see orange barrels. I'm not so sure about people working.
That's a normal day. They're just barrels in the way.
Thanks.
It's all good, buddy. Thanks for the call. Yeah, no, everything's continuing that most people. And look, I don't mean to make light of it because I know some people work for the government, and I don't want you to be affected. But we've been through this before. You know, if you go through a furlough or a layoff or something like that, it's a lot better to be a government employee and have that happen to you than a private employee because nobody gives you back pay in the private world, and almost no company has a pension. So if you've been with the government 25 years and you're getting tired of these shutdowns and this is bothering you, well, go on into the private sector. It's be a great time to leave. If you don't trust any of this anymore, just go on. But you know what? People don't do that because they know they're going to get their back pay and they know their pension's getting fatter every single day and that our tax dollars will fund that forever for the rest of your life. And that's just the way it is. It's the way it will always be. Even though it's not the way things are done anymore, anywhere else really in the world or in private business, we still do it with our government. And if you're a government employee, you get that perk. You get that bonus. I feel like you've earned it. I don't think working for the government in most positions sounds all that much fun. If it's some sort of an office job somewhere, that sounds awful to me for the most part. Now, if I'm a special agent with the FBI or I'm working in ICE or something like that, that's your thing, I get it. There's a lot of government positions that it's the military, politicians, I guess, that's their thing. There's certain things that's their thing. But most people with the government are just reporting to an office every day. They work, they do what it is that they do. It can be very mundane. You do the same thing over and over and over every day. There's a lot of that. If you're tired of that, grab your pension, get out and go in the private sector. You're qualified and can do it. You can do this. We are hopeful that there are cuts coming. And I'm hoping there are some threats today from Donald Trump that, we're looking at some places. If he starts taking questions, he usually does that in the afternoon. We're looking at some offices. We're looking at this. We're looking at that. They've been at this for years. And the New York Times was all over this yesterday. And I don't quote the New York Times very often because they just generally speaking are looking for something negative about Republicans. But in this case, what they perceived as something negative for their readers was really positive for your radio host. I loved reading it. It was about Russ Vought, who's in charge of the Office of Management and Budget. And apparently he's a real browbeater. And he's been at this for years with Donald Trump. They had 4 years off. I don't know if you remember that or not. They had 4 years off. And apparently, according to all kinds of sources, Vought has been planning for years exactly what's going to happen when the government shuts down. And this will include work and legal challenges for more executive authority. So Trump is going to try to exert, the plan all along has been, we'll see if they do this, is to exert more executive authority, test the limits, and do the legal challenges. What they're saying is Congress has relinquished its role in all of this, and it goes to the executive branch. Most people agree with that. Well, why not push the envelope and really do this? What they want to do, and the reason they want legal challenges, is the Trump administration, according to the story in the New York Times and sources they're quoting, privately want to get this thing all the way to the Supreme Court. They want the President of the United States to have the legal authority when the government is shut down to be more like the tyrant and dictator they say he is, that you can go do what you want. Thus, two great things would happen. One, the government wouldn't shut down. They wouldn't. There would be no way if these things were in place right now that Chuck Schumer would have allowed that. So that would essentially end the government shutdowns. Any party out of power would just go along with whatever the new whatever is, so the president doesn't have those powers. But at this point, Trump would have them if they can get this done. The other beauty of this, getting more powers for the chief executive, the commander-in-chief, is that Democrats wouldn't use it the same way. These things would be largely restricted to budgetary items, to firing, not hiring, to firing. There is when it's closed, there's no more money to hire. You can't really hire at this point. You can fire. You can close offices. You can terminate. You can cut the budget. You have all the right in the world to do that. Nobody's arguing that. So what Democrat, under what circumstance would a Democrat president come in under a government shutdown and cut spending? I mean, that doesn't sound like anything a Democrat would do. This sounds like a win-win-win if they get the Supreme Court to side with them, that the president has full authority to do this, and Trump takes action doing this. Now, there may be some little things here and there that a Democrat president can say, we'll cut this because Republicans like that. We'll cut this. We'll cut that. But it wouldn't be, we're cutting $1 trillion out of the military. That would be political suicide. It wouldn't be, we're cutting Social Security checks. They wouldn't do that. What would Democrats cut? There's not even an NPR or a PBS out there that's Republican-like that they could go cut. Maybe they could make cuts with ICE or Border Patrol or things like that, and it would anger a lot of conservatives. But even that, temporarily or until the next budget or the next debate or the next election, isn't the end of the world. We just saw 4 years. What's the difference? The president has the authority to tell the Border Patrol and ICE to stand down anyway because he did that. What does it matter if he defunds it? They might as well have defunded it the last 4 years if they weren't going to use all those people. So this is a chess game. And Russ Vought apparently has just been locked in on this and nothing else but this forever. How can we slash? How have you not heard the name Russ Vought very much? It, by many sources, is the person that got Elon Musk run out, that they got sideways, they got crossways, that Musk was cutting things that Vought wanted to keep and not cutting things that Vought wanted out. And so this became a real tipping point between Elon Musk and Russ Vought over at Management and Budget. And it would appear, at least to this point, that Russ Vought won, and he has been held this long waiting for the government shutdown because he's the guy who knows what to do and where everything is. I'm excited by this. I'm excited by it. I texted Mark Alford a little while ago. I said, cut it all. He did not respond back, but he gave one of those little thumbs up emojis like, hey, I hear you. I don't think he was saying, yeah, I want to cut it all. I want to speak for the congressman. But I texted him. He's like, I think that's what they're thinking. They're going to follow Trump's lead. Whatever he wants to cut, cut it. And there's got to be a lot of this. Rick Scott, the senator from Florida, said earlier today on a morning show that this is the opportunity, unquote, that President Trump has been waiting for. We have a $2 trillion annual deficit. And with these 750,000 jobs and $400 million a day that we're spending on non-essential people, that is leading to inflation in our country. Not only do we need to get the deficit at hand, balance the budget, but when we do that, if and when we ever do that, inflation will be non-existent. There might be deflation. And I'm not enough of an economist to know if that's good or bad, but I know we've talked about inflation our whole lives, and we don't like it. We don't want the inflation. So he's saying this is it. This is the time. This is the opportunity. And it's go time to make all of these things happen. This happens at a time where Democrats don't really know what's going on. And I'm talking about citizens, not politicians. Pollster John McLaughlin released some information yesterday on a poll that he conducted. And he conducted, they call thousands of people. They ask them if you're Democrat or Republican. And what he's found is the poll within the poll, where they're asking all these different questions, was really quite amazing. The majority of Democrats in America, according to this poll, believe that Donald Trump's tax cuts are actually a spending bill. They were asked about the big, beautiful bill and the tax cuts in the big, beautiful bill, and what is the bill about? And they said it's just a spending bill. He's spending more money and going over budget. They were then asked if inflation is better or worse than it was under Biden, and Democrats say it's worse. These are all provably false. This is the media they're consuming. They were asked if ICE is military being used against American citizens, and they overwhelmingly said yes, it is military, that the ICE is the military being used against American citizens. There's not been one case brought up of ICE detaining an American citizen yet. Not one over any of this, unless they were harboring the illegal alien criminals, which means they were in on it. And that's illegal too. So as they talk about disinformation and misinformation, it's pretty obvious that people vote for Democrats don't really know what's going on because they don't want to know. They just want to hate the Republicans. They want to believe whatever they're being told by their politicians, and Chuck Schumer's at the top of the list. Chuck Schumer is simply trying to protect his turf in New York. He is worried that AOC is going to primary him for that Senate seat. And Chuck Schumer, instead of worrying about 330 million people that live here, is worried about his job, and that's it. And he doesn't really even care about the job. He's got hundreds of millions of dollars. It's not even the work. It's the power. It's the legacy. It's the obituary. He doesn't want it to read that AOC came along, primaried his butt, and ran him out of New York. So he's trying to play hardline and deal with that hard base on the left and make them all feel really good about everything that's going on. It is just sickening that politics goes so much ahead of everything else. Here is Frank in Overland Park on KCMO Talk Radio. Good morning, Frank.
Hey, good morning, Kevin. Great show. How about he used his executive powers as he's establishing broader powers to, in a government shutdown, the first thing that gets cut is congressional salaries.
Yeah.
Not their staff, but the congressional salaries for Senate and House of Representatives with no reinstatement of those back pay.
I agree. I agree 100% on that. And their staff.
That's all I've got. Yeah.
And their staff and everybody involved in their offices, every single one of them.
Okay, so you do all of them.
All of them. And look, some of the staffers don't make hardly any money, right? And they're trying to build careers. I get that. But no, you're in the game. These would be the rules. You want to get in the game of politics. Our founding fathers never, ever envisioned we would send people from all over this country to Washington, D.C. to get rich. They never envisioned that. What they envisioned was the best leaders in local and state communities would rise to the top in those states because of excellence in business or faith or whatever field they're in, and they would rise to the top and go to D.C. and represent their state for what their state believes in. They believed what was coming to D.C. was people that were already successful, not people that just found their way there to make a whole bunch of money.
You're right.
That's the sad part. So, yeah, strip them of it. Mundo made a point this morning. He thinks Trump could do an executive order and stop it. I don't know whether that's legal or not, but he's done enough executive orders. Why stop now? Go defund them all, including himself and his staff. You know why? He can pay his staff.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly right. No back pay. Figure it out. I'm with you. There's no way that people responsible for shutting the government down should be collecting checks and get back pay when it's over. They shouldn't. They should be the ones with the most on the line every single time to do their stinking jobs. When we come back, legendary golfer from Kansas City, Tom Watson, making global news for his comments about the Ryder Cup and a new record price for an investment you got to hear about. We'll do that next with Mark on Uncanceled. It, of course, is brought to you by bestofferkc.com, helping you leave the hassle behind. We've been talking about the wonderful young mom named Stacy, who called several months ago now in tears saying her and the kids were living in a dangerous and abusive home and they needed to get out. Best Offer KC sent a couple of compassionate representatives to her home to take a look, sit down with her, calm her fears, say, we can get you out of here. We can get you the money to relocate. We'll get the house sold and we'll get you your check. And they did all of that. They did it in a timely fashion. They cleaned everything up. They got her possessions. They handled it all. She left the hassle behind because it was dangerous. There was somebody that wasn't supposed to be anywhere near her or the kids, and she felt like they were going to be or had been. They helped her get out. These are real life stories. Sometimes somebody's got to sell a home fast. There's a wide variety of reasons why. But at that point, you don't want to deal with some gimmicky people that think your house is ugly or is part of some big national chain and they're a franchise from some company that's owned overseas. You want the local company. That is bestofferkc.com. 816-338-SOLD. That's 338-SOLD for bestofferkc.com, helping you leave the hassle behind.
You're listening to Kevin Kietzman Uncanceled on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM.
All right, let's check in with Mark Van Parlay. We got a couple of tasty topics for Mark today. How are you, sir? Everything good in your world?
Oh, yeah, doing well.
You missing your federal government today?
I have not missed them yet, but maybe I will on the drive home.
I'm sure you're completely and utterly optimistic that Jackson County's figured everything out now, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, now
I mean,
that
Frank White's gone around. It's got to be perfect
they're
going forward.
fine.
Everything's good going forward. First of all, what were you doing 20 years ago?
20 years ago, I was probably going to a college class right now.
Okay. If you had taken, you have a part-time job in college?
I didn't have time because I was running track and cross country.
Okay. If you had $100 then and you bought an ounce of gold with that $100, what would it be worth today?
Probably 1,000.
1,000. That's exactly right. Gold has gone in. I mean, you can go way back where it was like in the 50s or 40s, whatever it was, $20 or something an ounce. But it's been, it kind of hung around $200-$300 for quite some time. It has taken off the last 20 years and mostly the last couple of years. This is wild. It's now $3,900 an ounce. 20 years ago it was $380. So that's a little more than 10 times. But October 1st, exactly 2 years ago today, it was $1,830. It has more than doubled in 2 years. Gold is just doing great. I hear all those commercials for gold and stuff. I've never really bought gold. I don't know if it's part of my portfolio or not. I need to ask my advisor if it is. Maybe there's some gold equities that he's got some money in. I don't know. But it's done very, very well. Do you have any gold?
My grandpa had some gold. I need to find out where that's at. I'm sure my mom and my aunt have it somewhere, but
Yeah.
maybe I need to dip into that.
You need to at least let them know how valuable it is.
Yeah.
For sure. Did you see this, what Tom Watson said?
I did not.
Tom
I'm curious
Watson,
about this.
Yeah, legendary golfer Tom Watson he's golf royalty, especially in Europe and Asia. He's the second most popular American golfer in Europe, no question. He won 5 British Opens. They love him there. And he said on X, and he doesn't really say much. Tom stays out of the limelight if he can. But remember, it's been decades ago that he quit Kansas City Country Club because his wife was Jewish, and they didn't have Jewish members at that club. And he's like, I'm out. I mean, Tom will take a stand. He stands for things. I'd like to congratulate the Ryder Cup Europe team on their victory. Your team the first few days was sensational. More importantly, I'd like to apologize for the rude and mean-spirited behavior from our American crowd at Bethpage. As a former player, a former captain of the team, and as an American, I am ashamed of what happened. Wow. I don't disagree with him, but I chalk part of this up to being New Yorkers.
And a little inebriated, probably.
Yeah, but they're New Yorkers are not a reflection of America by and large.
They're different, yeah.
They're just not. They're not like the rest of us. And I understand that they control all the media. And, I think Fox News, I get on, they're all, if there's a Mamdani, New York mayor, New Jersey election, who cares? Who cares? I mean, do they know who their audience is? We don't need more New York. We don't need more New York in our life. We just don't. But this was interesting because Paul Azinger, you've heard of him too, right? He's a professional golfer, was an analyst, was a Ryder Cup captain. He got all over Rory McIlroy. We've been talking about Rory McIlroy, what he said about the fans. Rory had a hard time with the fans. He was the guy that was targeted by the American fans last week. And he came out afterwards and said, hey, this is below the Ryder Cup. These fans were out of control. Golf can inspire people, bring people together. We got to be better than this. Paul Azinger said, I love Rory McIlroy. He didn't leave the PGA Tour for LIV. I like the guy. We're friends. But he said this. Rory, at his press conference, said, I think golf should be held to a higher standard of decorum. But in the meantime, he says, F you, F you, F you, in full voice for the whole world to see. He turns around and says to a guy in the gallery, shut the F up. The guy in the media today asked him, how did it feel, Rory, to tell that guy to shut the F up and then hit it to 2 feet away? And Rory said, it felt pretty effing good. I'm like, which is it, Rory? Is golf a higher standard? Or are you just going to sit there and F-bomb the fans and the media nonstop?
It's a little hypocrisy there.
A lot of hypocrisy. So I'm cool with that. Alabama State at Florida A&M last week. You missed this one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, who didn't? They have a plus-size dance team at Florida A&M called the Honeybees.
Oh.
The announcer congratulated when they finished because it was shown on TV. He says, they are now the face of Ozempic. And the entire crowd roared to the plus-size drill team.